The following is a summary of the Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Ki Seitzei Tov Shin Nun. Torah is from the word Hoirah, an instruction. Everything in the Torah, and especially the name of the Sedra, is an eternal instruction to every individual. What therefore is the instruction from Ki Seitzei? And especially as the Torah is talking of a milchemes harashus, which means it's a milchama, a war, which is fought with the permission of the Sanhedrin, but not necessarily is it a mitzvah. And that type of war is not shayach, is not applicable in our days, and therefore, what is the eternal instruction until the extent that it's b'chol yom yu be'enecha kachadoshim, each day being a new instruction given to each individual. Let's start off by having a look at a number of points in that first pasuk. First of all, the Torah says Ki Seitzei, when you go out, and it doesn't say the word Ki Silchem, when you will battle against. Also it says, Ki Seitzei lamilchama al oivecha. It should say, when you go out to war, keneged oivecha, against your enemy, or neged, opposite your enemy, or when you go to fight your enemy. Why does it say al oivecha, on your enemy? Furthermore, what does it mean when it says unasonai Hashem elokecha biyodecha? Hashem will deliver them in your hand. And it says, V'shavisa shivyoi, and you will take his captive. Why doesn't it just say, V'shavisa shevi, and you take captive? Why does it say, shivyoi, his captive? In order to understand this, we need to understand that in Avodas, the Avodah from Yidden, there are two parts. The first part is the avodah in kedusha, in the realm of holiness, Torah and mitzvahs, and then there's an avodah in the world, in order to refine the material nature of the world and to create a dira b'tachtonim. The difference between them is in which way we do this avodah. In kedusha, the way of avodah is in a way of shalom, a peaceful way. There is no menaged, there is no enemy. We learn Torah, we keep mitzvahs. In the avodah, in the world, however, that's done in a way of milchama, in a way of battle. Because the tachtonim, the world itself, conceals godliness, and in fact is the opposite of a dwelling place for Hashem. Furthermore, that mitzias, the very being of the Tachton, is created by Hashem. It's not running by itself. Hashem creates the Tachton, the lower world, which itself conceals on Elokus. And therefore, it's understood how great the Milchama, the battle, needs to be to transform it. So now we will understand why it says Ki Seitzei al oivecha. Because the Mokim Kavua, the place of a Yid, is really in Kedusha, in Elyon, in the higher spiritual spheres. And a Yid needs to go out of the higher place, from being Al, on, down to a place of the Tachton. And in order that a Yid should know that they have the capability to fight against the world and transform it, it says al oivecha, that in the first instance they are above, they have the upper hand, and they have the capability to transform the tachton. In more detail, that avodah to go out to war is also within the person themselves. Because within a person has a nefesh alakis, a godly soul, which is the elyon, the higher part of the person, and a nefesh abahamis, which is the lower part of the person. And in order to refine the nefesh abahamis, there needs to be the milchemes hayetzer, the battle against the Yetzer Hara, and that needs to be fought until Bishnei Yitzarecha, that a person should love Hashem with both the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. And the empowerment is given to do that by saying Al Oivecha, that there is the upper edge and hand in order to refine the Yetzer Hara and to bring it on board to ride in tandem to serve Hashem. Now, in a Milchama itself, there are two ways of Milchama. The first is a Milchemet's mitzvah. So, for example, the battle against the 7 nations in the land of Israel, or the battle against Amalek, or, for example, if Yidden are attacked, then there's a mitzvah to defend. The second type of Milchama is Milchemes HaRashus, which is when a king wants to expand the borders of Israel and to increase his greatness and his prowess. That second type of battle is called a Milchemes Rashus, a battle fought by permission of the Sanhedrin. Similarly, that reflects itself in our Avodas Hashem. There is a Milchemes Mitzvah, and that is the battle against the world according to the instructions of the Torah, to envelop the material world, including a person's body, in the realm of holiness, which includes the instructions of Kol Ma'asecha L'Shem Shamayim, all our deeds being for the sake of heaven, and B'chol D'rochecha Dayehu, knowing Hashem in all our ways, taking the world, taking the part which belongs to the nations, and making it the land of Israel. That's one Milchama, the Milchemes Mitzvah. And then there is the Milchemes Rashus, which is more than that which is necessary according to the Torah. One expands the area which is permissible to transform it to Kedusha. So, for example, let's take eating. A person could just eat bread and water, and eat L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven. However, to go and expand, to eat Basa Shomein, fat meat, and Yain Yoshan, an old wine, and do that L'Shem Shamayim, that's an expansion of going into an area which is not necessary, and yet enveloping that area in Kedusha. Similarly, in one's portion in the world, one could suffice with one's own daladamas, a small area. However, a Yid goes out and looks to expand by setting up a shul, a Beis HaMedrash, a place, a house of mitzvahs, etc. So now we will understand why it says Ki Seitzei in relation to Milchemes HaRashus. The addition of the idea of going out to battle in Milchemes HaRashus is not just in terms of quantity of avodah, that one expands more than what is obligated. The chidush, the novelty, is in the very type of war itself. However, in order to understand this novelty, we need first of all to ask a question about Milchemes HaRashus in our Avodas Hashem. When we go out to a Milchemes mitzvah, that is commanded by Hashem. And, for example, when the Yidden fought against the nations in Eretz Yisrael, there was a claim by the nations, as Rashi brings at the beginning of the Bereshis, Listim atem, you are thieves, you have stolen our land. And the Torah begins with Bereshis to tell us, as Rashi says, Koyach Masiv Higid La'amoy. It teaches us that no, Bereshis Bara Elikim, Hashem created the entire world, and it was the original intention to give it to the nations, and thereafter the Yidden should conquer it. Hashem gave it to them, and then He took it away from them and gave it to us. However, when you're talking about lands not of those lands, which were not given to Yidden, then how is it possible that we should go on a Milchemes HaRashus to conquer further lands which have not been given to us? Surely the claim of Listim atem, that you are stealing away lands, should apply in a Milchemes HaRashus. Similarly, in our inner battle in Avodah, that which a Yid has the capability to conquer a portion in the world, Al Pi Torah, is because Torah gives the empowerment to do so. And even though it needs a battle to do so, that's the kavanah, the intent of Dira B'Tachtoinim, that there should be a battle with the Tachtoin, as it was in the conquering of Eretz Yisrael. Although Hashem had promised Avram Avinu, Lezaracha nosati, I have already given this land to you, nevertheless, the Ratzon Hashem was that Yidden should enter into the land specifically through a battle. First of all, it should be in the hands of the Goyim, and thereafter, through a battle, it should become an Eretz HaKodesh. However, that's true in a Milchemes Mitzvah. However, when it comes to Reshus, there is room to say that there is no place for Milchemes Reshus in Torah, because that chelek, that portion, has not been given to Yidden. And if that is the case, if we go and conquer it, there could be a legitimate claim of the nations that listim atem, that you are thieves and taken something that actually does not belong to you. And this is the novelty of Ki Seitzei. B'Milchemes Harashus HaKasav Medaber. The Torah is talking about a Milchemes Harashus, meaning that the Torah gives permission that we should go out and conquer portions of land which have not been given to us, because the kavanah, the intent is that the entire world should be a dira for Hashem. Only by Eretz Yisrael it says that has been given to the nations and taken away from them and given to us. That is the chidush, that's the novelty in Milchemes Harashus, that even that has not happened over there. Nevertheless, we have the capability and are given the empowerment to go and further expand. But at the end of the day, that itself is very problematic. Because in a war, there is sakonas nefashos, there's danger to life. Pen yomos b'milchama, there is the question of dying in battle. And similarly, in Avodas Hashem, through entering into an uncharted area in Reshus, there can be the danger of it affecting a person to the extent that it can also affect a person's avodah in Torah mitzvahs. If we're talking about a Milchemes Mitzvah, no, then we have no choice. The Torah says we have to do it, and there is the promise of the Torah that we will be successful. However, in a Milchemes Harashus, which is just a war of permission, hayitachen, that we should enter into a dangerous state, which seemingly is the opposite of the command of Nishmarta Me'od L'Nafshei Seichem, of taking care of our bodies. How can we enter into a question of sakonas nefashos, of a threat to life? And even though there is a novelty in such an avodah, however, if that novelty is connected with danger, seemingly it would be better for us to remain within the domain of holiness and remain within the avodah of Milchemes Mitzvah, where we have the empowerment and promise that we will be successful. Furthermore, when a person goes into a battle and a danger area, one is endangering also not just the permitted domain, but one's endangering also one's avodah in Torah mitzvahs. And for what? For Reshus, just to get more land, and for prowess? Surely it would be better just to engage in Torah and mitzvahs and not go into a dangerous situation where there is a doubt whether one will actually succeed or not. And in fact, if God forbid one would fail, that would endanger one's whole avodah in Torah mitzvahs. The answer is that this itself is the chidush of Parshas Ki Seitzei. Since we have an entire parsha in the Torah that talks about Milchemes Harashus, it's understood that al pi Torah, a Yid has the power to enter into such an avodah, even though it's dangerous, and they have the nesinas koyach u'nesonai Hashem Elokecha beyodecha. Now we understand why he says those words in a pasuk. Because even in such a battle, Hashem gives us the power to be successful. And so we have, interestingly enough, opposites. On the one hand, the Jew chooses to go to war. It's not a mitzvah. There's the choice to go to war. And on the other hand, there is the real danger of sakana. And the Torah says, "V'nishmartem ma'od lenafshei seichem." You should be careful not to put yourself in a situation of danger. How does a Yid enter into that opposite? The answer is because a Yid is noisei hafchim. A Yid can carry opposites. And since a Yid can carry opposites, they can on the one hand choose to go into battle, even though it has and is connected with danger. Since a Yid is connected with Hashem, and Hashem can carry opposites, therefore Yidden have the capability to enter into a situation of Milchemes HaRashus, to choose to go into it, and yet to be successful even though it's connected with danger. The Metzias of the world, the whole existence of the world, which is Oivecha, your enemy, has a power because it's created by Hashem. And there is the room and there is the possibility that, God forbid, a Yid should be affected and in sakana from entering in such a battle. Yet, although there is the strength of the world and there is the sakana, the danger involved with it, nevertheless, a Yid is given the empowerment to enter into such a battle, and Hashem himself, gives the promise that if they do enter it into this Milchemes HaRashus, they won't fall into the hands of the enemy, and they will be able to take the shevi of the enemy, shivyoi, and bring it into the realm of Kedusha. The reason a Yid can do this, as we said, is because a Yid is one with Hashem, higher than the Metzias of the world, and therefore they have the power to conquer the entire world. And so, the Milchemes mitzvah is talking to a Yid who is shaykh, who relates to the level of the world as it is according to the commands of the Torah. In Milchemes HaRashus, that's related to the level in the Yid as the Yid stands aloivecha, higher than the world, higher than all parameters of Kodesh and Chol, and therefore the Yid has the capability to go out even in Rashus and to overcome Unosonei Hashem Elokecha biyodecha. Similarly, in Avodah, after a Milchemes mitzvah, there needs to be the further Milchemes HaRashus in order to gain and bring in more areas of Rashus into Kedusha. Like it says in Tanya Perek Tesvav, V'shavtem Re'isim bein Oved Elikim la v'lo yavodei. In other words, you can have somebody who has learned something 100 times. They're a tzaddik already, and they have already gone and learned the whole subject 100 times, and yet they're called lo yavodei because avodei, a true Eved Hashem, is a person who expands and changes the very nature of Kedusha and transcends into an area which is noisei havchim, which can carry opposites, expanding the border and realm of Kedusha so that they take in areas which are not mukhrach, they're not necessary, but nevertheless, even in the areas of Rashus, which are permissible, they bring them also within the realm of Kedusha. The instruction in Ki Seitzei is especially applicable in the month of Elul, and especially now that we've gone 10 days into the month of Elul. All Yidden are b'cheskes kashrus, and for sure 10 days into the month of Elul, all the inyanim of Elul have been achieved, and therefore a Yid could think, I can rest up. It's not necessary for me to go further into a Milchemes HaRashus. Perhaps I can rest up and remain with my avodah in the area of Kedusha itself. And similarly, the question applies in our generation, the last generation of Golus, and the first generation of Gula, which seemingly a person could say this is the time just to stay in the realm of Kedusha. Why go further and endanger into the realm of Rishus? And here comes the answer, that the avodah has to be Ki Seitzei la Milchama, a Milchama to change the status in oneself and in the world, and to prepare the world through the Yilachem Milchamas Hashem, the Milchamas which Mashiach will fight, through the spark of Mashiach which is within each individual. B'negei l'poyel, each one of us should add in the battle and the changing of the nature of Kedusha, so that all the matters of Elul, Ani L'Doidi, the drawing nearer Vayid to Hashem, should increase, especially through Limud Torah, and especially through Shiurim Barabim, public Torah learning, giving tzedakah, and all the other kavin of Elul. And especially making sure that every Yid has their needs for Yom Tov, ichlu mashmanim ushusum mantakim, fat meat and wine, and this will add on to the ksiva b'chasima tova and the bracha ikris, the main bracha of a shavisa shivyai, that which is captured, the Beis Hamikdash, should be returned to us, and we should bring bikurim in the Beis Hamikdash, and we should have the mulchama, the lachmi leishai, the korbanos of the Beis Hamikdash, and all that should be takef umiyad mamash.